really excited to be going to KataCon 8. It's my first KataCon. What we're going to do today is talk a little bit of a teaser about some of the content that I'm going to be sharing in both my keynote and some of the breakout workshops that we'll be doing at KataCon as well. So I'm going to share my slides and we'll get started. So today's session for the next half hour is about how to be a KATAlyst to accelerate learning by leading with intention. And for those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Katie Anderson. I am a leadership coach and lean consultant. I'm also now the author of the best-selling book, Learning to Lead, Leading to Learn, Lessons from Toyota leader Esau Yoshino on a lifetime of continuous learning, and the companion workbook that goes with it. I'm a speaker, and in non-pandemic times, I lead learning trips to Japan for leaders at all levels to learn about the foundations of the Toyota way and Kaizen culture. And my purpose is to inspire people around the world to live and lead with intention. And this word intention has a nuance of meaning in my view that helps us stay connected to our purpose. This made from the symbols. So when I moved to Japan, I needed business cards made, and the word intention that they put on my card is made up of symbols representing the words heart and direction. And I really see this as about understanding who you want to be, what's important to you, your purpose, and then what are the actions you need to take to align with that purpose. And so really intention is about aligning with your purpose and fulfilling that purpose as well. Hi, everyone, too. I'm seeing a lot of people from around the world, Canada, Mexico, Oregon, many other states as well, Panama, wonderful. So what we're going to be covering today in the next little under 30 minutes is the welcome, which we're here to right now, a definition of what a KATAlyst is, and then talk a bit about a leader's purpose and the Leading to Learn framework that I uncover in more detail in the book, Learning to Lead, Leading to Learn. We're going to talk about these leadership continuums that leaders and coaches have to navigate to successfully align their actions with their purpose. And then I'll invite you to set your intention and ways to continue your own learning. And then we will have time for some questions and answers at the end. I'm able to stay for another 10 minutes after the bottom of the hour too, so we can dive into your questions as well. So my intention for you for the next half hour is to have fun, learn something new, walk away feeling inspired, and with an identified target for how you will become a more effective KATAlyst in your life and in your organization. Before we get started, for everyone who's here live, I'd like you to set your intention about how engaged you intend to be today for the next half hour we are here together with. So 1, and you probably won't even be putting something in because you're not paying attention, to 7, fully engaged here, paying attention, planning on listening and being engaged, or 4, that you're a little more distracted or you're sort of half here, half not. So please put your intention in. Great to see you there, Sabrina and others, 6s, 7s, awesome. When we connect with our intention, we have an opportunity to make sure how we need to align and adjust our actions to really be connected with our purpose for being somewhere in the moment. So great to see you all here today. All right, so KATAlyst or KATAlyst. The definition we learned probably back in school. I remember being in middle school in science class, learning about what a catalyst is. So it's an event or person or something that accelerates the rate of change, or someone or something who encourages progress or change. I like to think about the word catalyst when we look about how do we practice the routines that encourage scientific thinking. We think about the word kata, meaning routine or practice routine in Japanese, that a KATAlyst is an event or person that accelerates the rate of scientific thinking and improvement, or someone or something that encourages learning as a source of progress or change. So we can be the KATAlyst, practicing the routines developed at Toyota based on how we create a learning organization and a learning pattern for ourselves and the people that we are with, so that we can accelerate learning across our organization. And this is fundamentally connected with the real secret to Toyota is its attitude towards learning. So without even knowing it or having these same words, Toyota has created a culture where everyone is connected to each other to help each other learn and develop and solve those important problems. And it's this attitude, not the tools or the processes, that really has accelerated their success. And the part of the, I guess, the secret sauce that at times we have missed when we've just looked at the visible tools and techniques. I had the great fortune and honor in my life to have befriended and known Toyota leader Esau Yoshino. He worked at Toyota for over 40 years in the 1960s up to the early 2000s. And he was the manager of John Shook, who many of you might know as the author of Managing to Learn about A3 thinking, as well as the chairman of the Lean Global Network. And John was the first non-Japanese employee of Toyota Motor Corporation. Mr. Yoshino was up on stage over 7 years ago, talking about his role as a manager and helping develop John. And he said, my aim as a manager was to develop John by giving him a mission or target and supporting him while he figured out how to reach that target. And as I was developing John, I was aware I was developing myself as well. This is the same pattern that Mike Rother observed and identified as the basis of the Toyota Kata framework that he has developed. This is the unspoken and undocumented pattern of behavior. What's the target or the challenge? How do I help support someone get there? And what do I need to learn and improve in myself to be more effective at both? I've really come to see that a leader's purpose is so simple, although not necessarily easy to do. It is about setting that direction, providing support, and developing yourself at the same time. And this is what I call the Leading to Learn framework. And you can dive into that a lot more in the book. All of these tools and frameworks that have emerged from Toyota are grounded in these principles. So here's A3 thinking, and this is the book that John Shook wrote. And in fact, Mr. Yoshino and Mr. Yoshino's direct report, Ken Kaneda, were the models for the manager character Sanderson in the book, and John Shook was the model for the Desi character, the learner. A3 thinking is not about just filling out a template. It is about the learning process that happens, the routine of behavior that happens between two people, someone who's owning a problem and someone who's coaching the problem-solving thinking. This is really how we're developing KATAlysts in our organization. The same with Hoshin kanri. It's on a larger scale and cycle, but there are built-in times and structures about what's our big challenge? How are we going to solve that? How are we going to work together? And what improvement do we need to make? This is the same framework for the Toyota Kata. What's our direction or challenge? That needs to be set by the leader. What's the current condition and how is someone moving through there? And again, all grounded in the PDSA or SAPD cycles. So a leader's purpose, setting the direction, is about providing that direction, challenge, or target that helps someone know where they need to orient their learning and their problem-solving activities. It's also important to set a target or a challenge based on not what's needed, not just by what is just achievable or what we think is achievable. Mr. Yoshino likes to talk about seemingly impossible targets. The word seemingly is really, really important here though, because it's not like definitely impossible. It feels like a stretch for us, but it's based on what's needed and it stretches us and stretches our minds because it's what you learn from those lessons of not immediately reaching your target that actually is based on the foundation of learning and it helps you get smarter and more wise. So this is what accelerates the learning. So one important aspect of being a KATAlyst is setting stretches of challenges that help us get out of our mind and think of new possibilities. This leader's second purpose is providing support. And this is about creating the conditions for learning. And again, it's about setting that challenge that pushes people, but also providing that support through coaching, through guiding, through teaching, through asking questions that allows someone to keep ownership of a problem, but still develop and feel like that they are not floundering or that they do not have any support out there to move forward. And this is what the learning zone is. So this is that same component that Mike Rother talks about, that, oh, I'm even forgetting the name, but in that slide there, it's that area that we don't know. We need to move past that, but we need to allow for some struggle, for some uncertainty, and allow that process of learning to happen. And this is the true KATAlyst activities as well. Thank you, the knowledge threshold. I had a little of a brain break. So that knowledge threshold is between that seemingly impossible challenge and the support, and that we have some struggling that's going to happen, because that's where the learning really happens. We also need to create a culture and an environment where people are not afraid of making mistakes. And this is such a critical component to the overall environment that feels safe. To experiment, to move forward and try something towards a seemingly impossible target, and to know that we aren't going to have perfection immediately. Some of you may have heard me or Mr. Yoshino talk about this paint story from his first few months when he worked at Toyota. You can in fact hear Mr. Yoshino tell it in his own words on Mark Graben's My Favorite Mistake podcast from January of 2021. But the short of it was, he made a big mistake. He poured the wrong paint and solvent into a vat, and over 100 cars had to be repainted. But instead of his managers yelling at him or blaming him, they came up to him and asked him for the process that he went through to pour the paint together. And not only did they not blame him, they thanked him for making that mistake, because it became clear that they hadn't created the conditions for him to be successful at his work. And so what a powerful experience for him. And he then paid that forward to others as well. So this is where we're accelerating a culture where people feel like they can experiment and learn forward as well. So his managers were true KATAlysts for scientific thinking and learning in their organization, and expanding his own capabilities for doing the same. So the leader's third purpose is about developing yourself. And so this is not just about everyone else needs to change and improve. It's about knowing that in an organization, we are all business conditions also that require improvement, and that our actions, our pattern of behavior, our own personal kata can either have us be KATAlysts, which are helping accelerate the rate of change and learning in our organization, or they can actually inhibit that. And sometimes our actions inhibit learning and problem solving without us even being aware that that's what's happening. And this is one of the biggest challenges I see for leaders and coaches, and frankly, it was for myself as well, that we know we want to be creating an organization filled with problem solvers. We want to help people, but sometimes our actions of how we show up don't necessarily align with that. So what we need to do to be more effective KATAlysts in our organization is learn to navigate these leadership continuums. So it's not just telling or having all the ideas and advocating for a position, or showing up to only ask open-ended questions and help someone. We need to know the balance of when to tell and when to ask. It's not that we are only experts or coaches. It's how do we own our content knowledge and our expertise that we've developed over time, as well as coach and develop others so that they can develop their own expertise and capabilities for problem solving and moving forward on the big important challenges that they have ownership for. It's about setting both a challenge and providing, or it's not just a challenge or support, it's both. How can we provide a seemingly impossible target, a stretch challenge, but enough support that helps people move through that learning zone? And it's not just looking at business outcomes or how do we create value for our customers, all the process outcomes that we need, or focusing on business or people development. How can we do both at the same time? So when we get more sophisticated and more comfortable with these leadership continuums, we know that we can apply the right thing at the right time based on what the person needs or the situation needs. And this is how we continue to accelerate our own abilities to be KATAlysts in our organizations. One of the challenges I observe is that we are stuck in firefighting mode all the time. And when we are firefighting, we end up leaning too much on this left side, the telling, the expert, the challenge, and the business outcomes as the top priority, and we forget to navigate more to the other side. And it's the other side or somewhere in between that actually allows the space for growth and development for people. So how do we also know what are true emergencies that need to be fixed now, all hands on deck? And there are those situations, absolutely. But where can we give more space, a little bit more time for thinking, a little more time for experimentation and failure, and be there to help support someone as well through their learning process? And this is an important condition for us to be effective KATAlysts in our organizations as well. When I talked about the challenges that we have for this disconnect often between our intended purpose and outcome with how our actions are aligned, is that we often show up more in telling versus asking. An unintended consequence of us giving the answer or telling people exactly what to do is that it takes over the responsibility for them to work through that problem. And you end up owning the problem solving or create this vicious cycle where everyone comes to you for all of the answers. You are not being a true KATAlyst in your organization. Now, of course, there is sometimes that telling is really right, but how do we keep ownership of problem solving with other people while helping them move forward as well? So this then self-perpetuates this condition of feeling overwhelmed and then continuing to be more telling, to be more directive, to showing up more as the expert who has the answers rather than more as that coach. And this is what I call the advocacy inquiry continuum. So we need to find a balance and really understand, is this my problem to own, or is this someone else's problem or challenge? And how can I help them best move forward? And the way to do this is really to focus on how you can navigate the coaching continuum more effectively. And this is what the pattern of the Toyota Kata is all about. This is the pattern that true A3 thinking and coaching is about as well. How do you help someone move from being a novice to an expert in problem solving? And how do you move between being directive and teaching and demonstrating when they're just a beginner, but not taking over the responsibility for the problem solving, and then how they get more advanced with the complexity of the problems that they have ownership for. So coaching is not just only asking questions. Asking questions is very, very important. It's about knowing when do we need more teaching to walk alongside someone to demonstrate how a next step that they might take. So when we can get better about knowing what the learner needs to move forward, we are a more effective KATAlyst. We need to often practice how to ask more open coaching questions because our habit is to be more telling, but we don't want to only be stuck on the asking side. We need a balance based on what the other person needs. So the way that you can amplify your impact is not just being the only problem solver and developing your own capabilities. It's about how can you help others develop their capabilities. And this is how we are KATAlysts that accelerate the rate of learning and amplify our impact and the organization's impact as well. And as I like to say, 1 + 1 = much more than 2. So this is where the KATAlyst, it accelerates it and expands it. And we really create an attitude towards learning, as well as capability and confidence across the people that are in our sphere of influence as well. So again, I encourage you to think about how you can become a KATAlyst in your organization. What are the things that you need to do to accelerate the rate of scientific thinking and improvement in your organization, and to see learning as the source of progress or change? So I advocate not just for being KATAlyst with a C, but KATAlyst with a K, and to use that hashtag too when you're thinking about how are we accelerating the rate of change and scientific thinking in our organizations.